For more, let's bring in Behnam Ben Taleblu and Ben Tracy. Behnam is a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Ben is a CBS News White House correspondent traveling with the president in West Palm Beach, Florida. Welcome to both of you. Ben Tracy, first to you. How is the president responding to this? And was the administration taken by surprise?
This does seem to have caught the White House off guard, and the president did respond very quickly, very early this morning. Just after 7 o'clock, he sent out a tweet, which is his favorite form of communication. In that tweet, he said that Iran is orchestrating an attack on the U.S. embassy. They will be held fully responsible. He went on to say, we expect Iraq to defend the embassy, and they have been so notified. Now, we also know that the Secretary of State followed up on that. He called the Iraqi president, the Iraqi prime minister, and reiterated the expectation of the U.S. that the Iraqi forces help protect that embassy. A little bit later on, the White House press secretary released a statement that vaguely said it will be up to the president as to how and when the U.S. responds to what the White House is calling an escalation on the part of the Iranians.
Behnam, former National Security Advisor John Bolton tweeted saying, quote, "The attack on the U.S. embassy in Baghdad is straight from Iran's playbook in 1979. It's a sign of Iranian control over Shia militia groups, not a sign of Iraqi anti-Americanism. We must protect our citizens from Iranian belligerence." Is Bolton right? And if so, what is the benefit here for Iran?
Elaine, Ben, great to be with you. I think the tweet by the former National Security Advisor is absolutely correct and is 100% on point here. This is tried and true from the Iranian playbook. The Islamic Revolution in 1979 was quickly followed with the hostage-taking on November 4, 1979, that led to a 444-day hostage crisis. In October of this year, the editor-in-chief of a hardline newspaper in Tehran recommended Iraqis do exactly what the Iranians had done to the U.S. Embassy in Tehran to the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. So this is absolutely from the Iranian playbook. The Iranians have a strong amount of control over many of the militias in the PMU and the popular mobilization units. When you look at the videos, you see a lot of the flags that carry imagery that is linked to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. These really are Iran's agents of influence in Iraq, and it behooves Washington to step up, protect its assets, protect its interests, as well as protect its allies and partners abroad from the retribution of these agents of influence.
Ben, up until now, sanctions have really been the main measure taken against Iran, not military strikes. So remind us what the Trump administration's policy actually is.
Well, it's hard to tell what the policy is and if there's going to be any sort of shift now that this has taken place. You'll recall that the president has been very reluctant to want to get into any sort of military conflict with Iran. He has a very well-articulated and strong aversion to these wars in the Middle East, which he often derisively calls wars over sand. So this is not something President Trump wants to get into quickly. So he has relied on sanctions. But I think when you look at that, you have to say sanctions really haven't gotten the desired result here if it's to get Iran to back down. Back in June, there was this moment where it appeared that the president was ready to take military action. That's when Iran had shot down a U.S. surveillance drone, and there were plans drawn up at the Pentagon and the White House, and the president pulled back on it at the last minute and reverted to sanctions. So these airstrikes that took place earlier this weekend, this was really the first time where we were seeing military force being used. And I think the reason for that is because you did have a dead American, and the feeling was that there had to be some sort of response. Where we go from here, we don't know yet. The White House is being very vague and giving the president a lot of leeway for a lot of options.
Well, Behnam, as Ben just said a moment ago, critics of the president say that the president's approach to Iran has been a failure because regional provocations have escalated and the country is resuming its nuclear program. What is your assessment?
Well, this may sound perverse, but the uptick in regional provocations, as well as Iran's gradual leaving of the 2015 nuclear deal known as the JCPOA, is a perverse measure of success of the sanctions policy. Iran did not expect Washington to be able to do unilaterally in about a year's time what took multilaterally about a decade of time to do, and that is to replicate all this pain against the shipping sector of Iran, the energy sector, Iran's oil sales, and have this macroeconomic contraction on almost every level of the Iranian economy. The max pressure policy that the president has implemented for the past year or so is a strategy of cost imposition. It's supposed to make the Islamic Republic fight these regional wars with one arm tied behind its back. So it is bleeding the Islamic Republic, and because the Islamic Republic is bleeding, it's lashing out in an attempt to stop the sanctions. Now, what's happening right now is there's a game of chicken. Washington is probably going to escalate the sanctions in 2020, and Iran is probably going to escalate its regional belligerence in 2020, and Iraq looks like it's going to be a key theater.
All right, we'll continue to watch it closely. Behnam Ben Taleblu and Ben Tracy, thank you very much.